Hello everyone, welcome to part 2 of our Gelli Plate Printing series where we are going to be exploring a variety of papers and mark making tools to create transparent papers, book pages, lots of interest. We'll do some trial and error. We're going to use paint. Again, we're staying with a limited palette. If you missed part 1, it's in my gel plate printing playlist, and I will link to that in the comments. So let's get started. So I have some parchment paper. Of course, I still have copy paper. I have some tissue. This is just plain tissue that you can get from the Dollar Tree, or you can order it. I have some deli paper, which is what they use to wrap sandwiches in. I have some rice paper and Japanese calligraphy paper. This is a really thin paper and super fun to work with. I have some mulberry paper, which is also transparent. I have book pages, several book pages. These are really fun. Old books are easy to find at a thrift store, so you can pick something up for not a lot of money. And then I also have a variety of printables. These are printables that I have trimmed down to size for the Gelli Plate, but these are printables that I provide to the members of my Canvas Muse Artisan Circle every month. And so I give them new printables every month. These are mostly backgrounds that I've hand painted and digitized and provided to them. So I have a variety of those, and I've got my 5x7 gel plate again. I always store it in the clamshell that it comes in just to keep it protected. For mark making tools, I've got a whole bunch in here. There are so many more that we could use, but I have a wood graining tool. I have a variety of stamps. I have this little silicone brush and marker, which I thought would be fun. I have some bubble wrap. I have a seawool sponge, another little graining tool or scraper with different teeth on it. That can be fun. I have this little salt and pepper shaker. I think I picked this up at the dollar store, and I liked that it had this ribbing on the glass and then this little top up here with the holes in it. I have just a cap to my water bottle, a cup. I have a chip brush. I have a bathroom tissue roll that I just wrapped some rubber bands around, and I thought this is going to be a fun one to do. And I've got a square little spice tin lid. And then I have an IOD mold that has some really nice detail to it, and I thought we might try stamping that in there. And then I've got a plastic fork. There are so many things, but I had to stop myself because we can't do all the things. But I just wanted to give you an idea of some of the things that you may have around your home that you can work with for mark making. It doesn't have to be anything expensive. You can make different things. I just am wanting to encourage you to try different tools and different things that you can use for mark making. Oh my goodness. And then how could I forget? Before we get started, how could I forget? We're going to be using stencils too. And then the other mark making tool that I have is just a plastic sink mat. So now I have everything set up. I have my 5x7 gel plate on my glass mat. I've got my brayer. I have some scrap paper over here that I can roll off my brayer with. I have the colors of paints that we used last week, and this time I'm also going to be introducing some titanium white. So you can always add your basic limited palette colors and mix white or black or something like that, and you're going to get different shades or hues or values, whatever you prefer to call them. And it is nice to give you, it keeps your color palette small, but it also gives you some different shades, which is really nice. And so I think the first one that we're going to start with is I'd like to use a stencil. Let's use this one. It's got some fun squares in it. And I haven't used this one yet, as you can see, because it's clean. And that's the telltale sign that it's clean. So I'm going to set my stencil on here, and I'm just going to put a little paint on. We're going to do this two ways. So I'm going to put a little paint on here, and then I'm going to roll this over my gel plate. I've got a lot of paint on here, so I'm going to want to take some of that off, and I can roll that off. Let's get some of that off. I went a little over the edge there, so that's easy. While the stencil is still down, I can wipe this back. And then I just went a little too heavy on that paint. And so I'm going to lift my stencil up and come right over here, and let's do another little bit right here. I'm going to see if this is going to cover it. I'm going to try. I kind of messed up that other little area, but that's okay. We can go over that. I can even clean this up just a little bit with my baby wipe because nothing is really dry, so I can do that. Now when I lift this, I've got a little bit of a gap, but that doesn't bother me. Let's go ahead and put down our paper here and see what we've got, just like that. So you can do a paper just where you have the stenciling on it. This is my parchment paper, and I'm just going to, I may smudge this if there is too much paint, but that's okay. I'm going to lift up and see if I've got any transferring. I do have some. I'm going to push down a little bit. If you have too much paint on your gel plate, you're going to maybe need to let it sit a little bit, but we're going to go ahead and pull this print, and I think that's really, really fun. But I'm going to do another stencil. I'm going to do something like, let's do the flower over here. I think this could be really pretty. And we'll do this in a different color. So I'm going to kind of position this where I think I want it, maybe on the edge here, just like this. And then let's do something with the yellow. I'm just going to do a little on here in a couple of areas. And then I'll take my brayer, clean that off a little bit, and then we'll go over this and add this stencil to it. I'm going to go right over the other areas that I've stenciled. It's okay, doesn't matter. I'm going to get a little bit of a darker color in some areas, lighter in others, so it might be a little distressed. You can layer your stencils really easily. So now I have this design on my gel plate, and I'm going to let that sit for just a minute while I get another piece of paper. That one's still drying. So let's work on a book page. I'm going to grab one of those. So I'll just use this one since I have it and it's big enough for my plate. So I think that's pretty good. I'm going to go ahead and use this green on here, and I'm going to add just a little bit of white as well on my plate, and that's going to mix in with the green. And so I'm going to go over, mix that pretty well. I don't even mind that it's a little, splotchy in some areas. That's okay. And now I'm going to take my book page, lay that on my print, smooth that down, and then let's lift this and see what we get. So that's kind of fun and interesting. My flower did not really pick up fully, so I'm going to try this again, but this time I'm going to put the stencil down, and I'm going to do this with a little bit of a lighter yellow. So I'm going to put this down maybe on this side this time. And this time I'm going to do a little bit of the yellow, but I'm also going to mix in some white and see if that doesn't show up a little bit better. We'll see if that works. Put a little white on there, and I'm just going to come in here and we'll get some interesting shading. A lot of white. White is always a nice break for your eyes. So I think that that's something that is good to have on hand. Lift that up. I like that. I think that's really pretty. And then I did it this way. So let's go ahead and lay this down. I'll try to line it up. I'm not using the little hinge or anything. I just want to see what we get. And I'm not going to hold my breath, even though I'm really excited to see what this does, if I got anything at all, if it's even going to show up a little bit more. And it did, and I think that's a really pretty print. So that's a really interesting little print. Let's try a stamp, or let's actually just do another little stencil on this. So this one has the squares, and I've already used the flower one. So let's try this one, which has some interesting little lines here. And I'm leaving all of the paint on my gel plate, and we'll just get that because it gives some interest to it. I'm going to wipe my Gelli plate back. And I don't think I'm going to do the whole thing. I think I'm just going to go with this and see what we get. I've got a little bit of that white on there. And let's put this print down again. See if I gave it enough time. I still get some interesting color. The stencil didn't quite come out, but I think we'll dry this one and then we'll go ahead and stamp it. So let's go ahead and do something with our tissue paper. And for this one, I'm gonna go ahead and clean off my Gelli plate, lay some paint on my gel plate. I'm not sure. I'm just going to get some paint on here, and then let's use this mat. So I'm going to lay this mat down, and I'm going to push this in. In fact, I think I'm just going to run my brayer over it just to make the indent. And what it should do is lift off. And it did. So I have this little grid here. I think that's really fun. And then in here, what I think I'd like to do is just maybe a little, I don't know, just a little, I'm just gonna do some little circles in here. And all I'm really doing is removing paint from that area. And then let's take a piece of white tissue. It's just plain. This one has a little mark on it, but I won't worry about that. Now, tissue is a little different because it is thin. But what I love about gel printing on tissue is that when you collage it and use a water-based medium, it blends into the background. So, and you'll see that when we start collaging. And this is going to give us a transparent paper. And I really, really, really love the effect of that. But now when I lift this, I want to do it gently. I'm getting this really fun look right here. It's nice to have a variety of multicolored papers. So I like some of these. So I'm going to do some that are just blues, some that are just greens. Let's look at another paper that is fun to stamp on, and this is mulberry paper. I like mulberry paper because it already has a lot of texture built in. You can see these threads, and so this is a really fun one to do too. And so on this one, I am going to try, let's do a little bit of our, this is a wood graining tool, and so I'm going to do some in two colors here. I'm going to do, I think I'll do blue first, and I do this by going ahead and laying out my paint and use my graining tool, and I'm going to go off the edge. I'm not going to put a lot of pressure on it, but I'm going to rock it and roll it. And we'll lay this down on the mulberry paper. And it's very thin, so it's going to come through on the other side too, which I think is really cool. You could use either side. And then I'm going to lift this up. I still had some other color on my plate. And so that's a really fun effect too. I have this one and I thought this is kind of cool because you can do some squirrel, some swirly lines and things like that. So I'm going to go ahead and use that one. We will go through all of our mark making tools and see what we get. It's just really fun to experiment, and you would be surprised at what can work. So I think I've got this fairly clean here. Let's see. If not, it's just going to add an interesting mark. So this one also, I think you can see my hand behind it. And so this one's also going to be a really fun transparent paper, and it's mostly blue. And so I've got this one to work with too. So I really love that. And let's try a little heavier bodied paint. So I'm going to use, this is the matte acrylic. And so this one should bleed through the back. I may have a little green on my paint. So I'm going to do a little circle like this. I'm going to come down here and do a little circle. I'm going to make a little mark here. I'm going to come up here and do a little swirl. Here, another one. And then I might just take my plastic fork, if I can find it, and just do some little marks like this. I can use the tip, do some little cross hatches here. I can take that and come in the circle like this. With just the tines of the plastic fork. I don't want to puncture my gel plate, so I'm being fairly careful. And let's see what we get. So I'm going to lay it down on the same side. It's going to have a little bit of that green, and let's see what we get. I'm just going to push that down, make sure I'm getting in here, and then let's see what we've got. Oh yeah, this is much nicer. Super fun. It's a bit of a fragile paper, so it's tearing. But here's what we have here. And I think that's a really fun look. And that's just with your fork and our little scraper tool. So let's try a stamp. So I'm going to grab my ink pad and then we're going to just do some stamping. Okay, so I have this stamp. It is, I can use the individual stamps or use them as a sheet. And I think what I'm going to do is go ahead and use it as a sheet, the ground espresso color. So I'm just going to ink up my stamp. I want to be careful on my gel plate not to harm it in any way, but I'm just going to stamp this up, get some ink on there, and then we're going to flip this over. I'm going to lay it on my gel plate and gently push this, lift that up, and I have that stamping. So I have a little bit of smearing, but I think that's completely fine. And then I'm going to take this one and I'm going to lay it down on my plate and see if I can get it to transfer without any additional paint. Let's see what we can do here. And I got some of it. It could be the brown paper. Let's see what I get when I just put some paint on the back of this. So let's go ahead and do something a little bit lighter. Let's use this one. See what we got. And let's do this one with a little bit of tissue. So I'll lay that down and press with my hands. See what we're getting. Ooh, it really wants to stick. But it's picking up that distressed stamp quite a bit. And I do really love that. So this is a fun one too, right? And so it can pick up your stamping like this. You can also stamp through a stencil. So I'm going to find a stencil that I think will work well with this. Let's just use our floral stencil again. I'm going to go ahead and lay this down, this little ledger here, and I'm going to ink this up. I've got to move this just a little bit out of the way so I have some room to work. And I'm going to stamp my ledger. Actually, an acrylic block would work really well for this. So I have this, and now I can apply some pressure to this. And let's see if I got it to transfer through my stencil. I did in some areas, better in some than others. So I'm going to ink this up again. And we'll try coming down here with it. And make that impression. That was a lot better. And I'll come in here where I missed some. See if there's anywhere that I want to fill in a little bit. Get some here. Okay, and so now we're going to let that dry a little bit. I'm just going to go ahead and do this. Let's see what we can do here. We'll just get a little bit of paint on here. So I'm going to lift this up so we can see what we've got. And I think that's really fun. So you can see the script through the stencil. We're going to go ahead and use a piece of deli paper for this. We will decide what color we're going to use. I think I'm going to mix a little blue and a little white for this just to keep it light. So I'm going to do that by mixing it actually on my piece of paper over here. And I'll roll my brayer in that and see if we can get that mixed up while this is drying. So I just want something lighter so that it shows up a little better. Got everything covered. Okay, and then we're going to lay this jelly paper down, or deli paper down. Deli, it all gets a little, it gets to be a lot. So this is a very smooth paper, also transparent and really, really pretty to work with. I think it's nice when you're going to do a collage to have various weights of papers. All right, let's see if I gave this enough time. I'm going to peek because I'm impatient, you guys. Aw, this is so, so pretty. So this is a really fun one. And now what I have is this paper, and it has the stencil and the typography that showed through the stencil. So this is a really fun one to work with too. It would make a great background for a card or junk journaling or something like that. Okay, for this one, I decided that we're going to go ahead and stay with the shapes. So I have some irregular rectangles and squares on here. And so I thought we're going to do some circles. And I thought we would just go ahead and do them in white. And so I'm going to put some white paint on my gel plate. And again, it'll help because we'll be bringing in some more color, or some highlight by adding our white paint to this. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my bubble wrap and I'm going to push down. And I'm going to lift up. And then I may be putting more paint back in, but let's see if this works because I may need a cleaner piece of bubble wrap to reuse this, but we'll see what we get. It's pretty good. I think that's fun. I can do this just like this. So we've got some bubble wrap, and then I'm just going to lay this down and see what we get. And let's see what we get. I don't know if I'm going to love this. We'll see. Well, I think it's got some interest to it. I'm not going to give up on it completely, but we may have to keep going with it. So not every print is going to turn out perfectly, but I could always let it dry and stamp something on it. It doesn't have to be on the Gelli plate. You can actually use your stamps on your prints when they are dry. Let's look in our mark making situation and see something that we haven't used. We haven't used this, and I've got another stamp in there. I really wanted to try this, so I think we'll do that, and we haven't used this. So let's go ahead and do that, and then we'll use our circle and our square, and we'll try to use a piece of paper that we haven't used. When the paint gets dry and it starts to lift up the paper, that's a good sign that it's time to get a new piece of paper. So I'm going to set this aside. I'll wash this up with a little soap and water, let it dry, and then I can use it again. So I'm going to clean off this white paint. So let's go ahead and try this little roller that we have and see what we can do. I thought this was just kind of fun. I don't know how it's going to work. I haven't used it yet, as you can see, because the rubber bands are clean. But we are exploring and having lots of fun with this. We've done quite a few of the yellows. I think I have a lot of yellows, a few blues, but let's see what we can get here. I'm going to go ahead and do a blue on my plate. Go off on that. Okay, let's just take this and see what we get. That's kind of fun, right? That's kind of fun. Just rolling it is kind of fun. Love that, actually. Can roll over it some more. I can go in this direction with it. It's just lifting up the paint. I think that's kind of fun. And then let's do some squares and some circles. So I'm going to come here and lift up, tap off. I don't think I'm getting a big square there. Tap off, because when you have paint on it, wet paint, it can actually just, now see, that's working better. So I'm going to lift up a little bit more. So you may just, the paint might be a little wet, but what I'm wanting to do is just lift some of that off. Come down here. And then I think I'm going to just do these circles in that. And then maybe I'll do, I don't know. Let's see how this works. Oh, I really love the blue and the yellow together. So let's do a little bit of that. I want this to be a little dry so I don't end up with too much green. And I'm just going to do a few little dots here. All right, let's see what that looks like with a book page. I'm going to come here and lay this down and see if that text will show through any of the openings. See if this is going to be fun. It's transparent enough that all the text is showing through, but I still think this is a fun print as well. So I've got a little color variation, and that's a fun one, and the text shows through here, but then it's a little covered and it shows through. So I think that's a fun one to do too. Let's do work with a printable background that we have, because that is a paper that we have not used. So this is just a piece of a background that I painted and digitized, and it already has a lot of interest in it. And so I think what we're going to do on this one, gosh, what should we do? There's like so many things we could do. I could stencil more on this one. I could just do some mark making on it. I could use, this is kind of a fun stencil to use. Let's see if we get some fun interest with the stencil. I don't know. Let's just give it a go. So I'm going to lay this stencil down here. I've been really curious to see what we could do with the printables and the Gelli Plate. So I thought, let's go ahead. It's got quite a bit of gold. It has less green in it, but I think I'm going to go ahead and go with the gold. Let's just see what happens. Maybe I'll just do a little bit of both. So I'm going to do a little bit of gold on the top. And let's just use all the colors. Why not, right? Let's just see what we get, what effects we will get. I'm going to get an interesting mix of color on here. So I'm going to do the blue, the green, the yellow. I'm going to get a little more green up there. Okay, I can do a little texture making in there. We could try our stamp or something, but let's just give this a go. I could also take this sponge and pick up some of that paint and give it a little more texture, which is fun. And I want to clean this up right here. Clean that up. Okay, and let's go ahead and lay this printable down and see what we get. I just wanted the stencil to come through like that, and that's really pretty. I really love that. I love that it already has a lot of the beautiful background behind it. I like the variation in color of the stencil, so I can see a little bit of the blue and the yellow, and I think the colors work perfectly with this particular one. I hope that you are enjoying all of the different varieties that we are creating and learning different ways to mark make and different papers that we can use to print on. So this was an 11 by 4 sheet that I've cut in half. But this was a background that I collaged using vintage ephemera. And so I went ahead and created a collage with this and then digitized that. You can see my hands. You might want to wear gloves. I'm going to use this seawool sponge to apply my paint in just kind of a, I don't know, I think I'm going to brayer it and then we're going to lift it up. So again, we're going to do some blue and yellow, and then we will end up with a green somewhere in the middle. So I won't be using my green paint. I'll use this instead. All right, so that's kind of an interesting background. So I'm just going to go ahead and pick up some of this with my seawool sponge. Turn that over. I like that. I think that's fun. And then I'm just going to use this as a stamp on the side and see what we get. I'm going to wipe that back. Use this other side. I don't know really what I'm going to get, but we're going to give it a go and see. Now it's starting to pick up. So once that paint is a little dry, it seems to work a little bit better, but really all I'm trying to do is just get a really interesting distressed kind of feel to this. Lift it up like that. So I'm just using the ribbed side here and playing with that. And I love how distressed that is. And we're going to go right over there. And so this is printed on an A4 rice paper. This design is. And while the printables are given to my Artisan Circle members, I do have a few collections available on Zazzle that you can purchase various sizes of tissue paper in the designs that I have, and I will link that in the description. So let's see what we get here. Maybe there's too much going on. I don't know. But that's kind of fun too. So again, we've got the typography showing through. We could add a stencil. We could keep going with this, but this was really fun. So I think I'm going to have a hard time stopping for sure. So let's look at all of the printables or all of the jelly prints that we have done today. We've done book pages, and we've stenciled, and we've stamped, and we've distressed and mark maked, and we did the things. So this is the last one that we did. So this is on a printable, and we used our little salt and pepper shaker and our seawool sponge to create some texture. This one I love. This is one of my printable designs, and we stenciled on it with various color. I think this is one of my favorites. This is where we stenciled and stamped through the stencil and then pulled it with the blue. This is one that we did the roller with, and the spice jar lid, and the round circle cap. Here's one that we just did with the sink mat and some yellow, and then just making some little holes in here. We did this one with the little scraper, the little silicone scraper, and our plastic fork. This one we created with our wood grating tool. This one we created with a stamp and then painting. This one we created with a lot of different things. Thank you so much for joining me today. I really appreciate it. If you enjoyed this video, I would greatly appreciate it if you would like my channel or subscribe to my channel, hit the bell for notifications, because I'm really hoping you're going to join me next week as we begin to collage with the beautiful papers that we've made. Thank you so much for being here, and happy creating.